I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Wednesday, November the 18th, 2015. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke over the phone to Russian President Vladimir Putin today, and the two agreed to meet at the climate change summit happening in Paris later this month. Netanyahu expressed his condolences to Putin regarding the Russian airplane crash over the Sinai, and the two leaders also discussed the Palestinian issue and the situation in Syria. Israel Air Force jets hit terror targets in Gaza overnight last night in response to rocket fire towards Israel. Yesterday, the Iron Dome battery fired an interceptor missile at what it thought was an incoming rocket, but it is not clear if a rocket actually landed in Israeli territory or fell short and landed in Gaza. The Jerusalem Post diplomatic conference took place in Jerusalem today. 400 ambassadors, ambassadorial spokespeople, and military attachés from around the world gathered for the event, which is aimed at strengthening Israel's public relations among diplomats residing in the country. At the start of the conference, Prime Minister Netanyahu stood on the stage with the French ambassador to Israel, Patrick Maisonneuve, for a moment of silence in memory of the victims of the terrorist attacks in Paris that took place Friday night. After which Netanyahu told the ambassador that Israel stands with France and restated the need to be united in the fight against radical Islam. Also addressing the gathering, EU Ambassador to Israel Lars Faberg-Andersson, who spoke on the matter of the recent EU decision to label products made over the Green Line, which he maintained was not a boycott of Israel. Andersson said the EU's relationship with Israel was, quote, among the closest, most diverse, and most intense the EU has with any non-member state. U.S. Ambassador to Israel Dan Shapiro spoke at the conference as well, warning that although a two-state solution may take some time, it was still the best outcome. Shapiro said there is a great risk that we will slide toward a binational outcome that threatens Israel's Jewish and democratic nature. He also addressed the current wave of terror in Israel, restating the strong condemnation from the U.S.
We condemn it in the strongest terms, period. And we forcefully engage the Palestinian Authority leadership to stop the incitement that often stands behind it. As Israel mourns the murder of so many of its citizens, most recently Rabbi Yaakov Littman and his son Natanel Littman, Zichronam Livracha, who were gunned down just before Shabbat, and as it prays for the recovery of dozens more who were wounded, and this list includes American citizens as well, America's leaders and countless other Americans stand in steadfast solidarity with the Israeli people. With Israel, just as with France, America's condemnation, our total rejection of terror, whether it's in the form of rocks or knives or motor vehicles or guns or suicide bombers or rockets, is unequivocal and rooted in the kinship of our open and democratic societies.
Two women were arrested in Germany for attacking a synagogue. Police there say the women aged 21 and 36 smashed several stained glass windows of Brandenburg State's only synagogue this morning in the East German city of Cottbus. The women reportedly were intoxicated, and police were still trying to determine if the attack was deliberate and motivated by anti-Semitism. A new community will be built in Israel bearing the name of one of the country's youngest victims of last summer's war in Gaza. Daniel will be the name of the new town, which will be built in the Merchavim Regional Council west of Beersheba in the country's south. It will honor 4-year-old Israeli boy Daniel Tragerman, who was killed by a shell fired from Gaza during the 2014 conflict. Pope Francis will make his first official visit to Rome's Great Synagogue early next year. The visit will take place on January the 17th. Pope Francis will be the third Roman Catholic pontiff to visit the synagogue. Before him, official visits were conducted by Popes Benedict and John Paul II. Jewish community professionals from 40 countries across the globe met in Lisbon, Portugal for the second gathering of the National Community Directors Forum, organized by the World Jewish Congress. The event began Sunday and concluded yesterday. It was aimed at fostering cooperation between Jewish communities on issues of common concern, like fighting hatred and strengthening the security of Jewish institutions. WJC CEO Robert Singer said the coming year would be a challenging one for Jewish communities worldwide. Singer said exchanging best practices and providing Jewish leaders with the necessary tools are key missions of the World Jewish Congress. The participants also signed a joint letter to French Prime Minister Manuel Valls, offering their condolences over the Paris terror attacks. And taking a look now at our programming on JBS for tonight, Wednesday, November the 18th. Coming up at 7:30, movie actors, film critics, and Jewish thinkers look at scenes from classic and contemporary films and show how they reflect the wisdom of Judaism in Cinema, The Jewish Lens, a film from Jerusalem U's series. At 8:05, Dr. Jeffrey Scholson of the University of Connecticut gives a history of Jews as citizens, from biblical Israel to medieval Europe to present-day America. That's a program of the Center for Judaic Studies and Contemporary Jewish Life from UConn, Stanford. Followed at 9 o'clock with part 2 of Mark Golub's L'chaim interview with Harvard Law Professor Alan Dershowitz. And coming up right after this newscast tonight, Thinking Out Loud with Micah Halpern. And that's the JBS News Update for Wednesday, November the 18th, 2015. I'm Teisha Bader.